Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for this summer transition series with our lovely colleagues and folks over in Prehealth Advising. My name is Shamice Banks, and I am the Assistant Director within the Office of New Student and Family Programs. And so, as another little note, this particular webinar is being recorded. So any of you that aren't able to join or watch live, or if you know any of your friends aren't able to watch live, this will be recorded and uploaded 48 to 72 hours on our New Student Programs YouTube page. And we'll upload it once it's all transcribed and it's made accessible for all to view it. And so before I pass it off to my amazing colleagues, want to make sure that we touch on some Zoom webinar features or some ground rules. So the Q&A feature is what you should utilize to input any questions that you have. So some of the responses are going to be typed, but most of them will be answered live. The chat box or the hand raise feature has been disabled. And again, this webinar is being recorded. So those are our ground rules or housekeeping. And now I'm going to pass it over to my lovely colleagues.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us again. For those of you returning from our last session, I'm Brittany Moorhack. I'm the Associate Director of Health Professions Advising here at Duke. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dean Pratt.
And I'm Alyssa Purz. I'm a Senior Associate Dean in Trinity College and direct the Office of Health Professions Advising. I also am a lecturer in the Department of Biology. And we're glad to be back again today to offer a little more specific advising about classes, since registration will be coming up next week. Our agenda today is to get you thinking about planning your courses with a specific focus on fall of 2023. We want to build off what we started last time, highlighting the places where you have choice in the sea of requirements associated with being a pre-health student. We'll offer some tips for your success in planning a well-balanced schedule. We'll touch on some example schedules so that you can craft your own. And then we'll spend the majority of our time taking your questions, because we know you probably have some of those as you approach next week. Before we do that, just a reminder from last time to use the QR code to join our listserv if you have not already. We will show these slides again at the end if you don't have time to grab both codes right now. We're also really excited. We're starting an Instagram account, and you can be among the first to follow us at Duke_HPA. All right, so getting started, we often hear students talk about wanting to get the pre-health courses out of the way and feeling a great sense of urgency about checking off the boxes. We want to shift that mindset a little bit and encourage you to think about the classes you pick, creating a balanced schedule, but in terms of everything you take, is going to count for something. The biggest categories of counting, of course, are the pre-health classes. They'll often be the first thing you look at so that you continue down this pathway. But courses that are not pre-health are likely to count for Trinity requirements or Pratt requirements, whether it's for your major or other parts of the program. So try to ask yourself, what are the ways in which these courses are counting toward my goals of graduating with a Duke degree? And then rather than starting with the requirements, we're going to start with, what do you do in the places where you have choice? It's like the empty space outside of the requirements, and it's just as lovely and just as important as meeting those pre-health requirements. So on the left-hand side in green, if you're in Trinity, one of the great places to start is that you have a foreign language requirement. If you're starting anywhere other than the advanced or advanced intermediate level, you're going to need to take 3 semesters of the same language. I've seen so many great stories of students who go on to major in language, do really cool research projects in a foreign language. We have Duke Engage programs that have language requirements. And of course, sometimes starting your language early enough sets sets you up to study abroad using that language. So finding that foreign language you want to study and incorporating that into your schedule can both meet the balance expectations as well as meet a Trinity requirement and set you up for some really nice unexpected surprises. Another option is to take a course in a major that you want to explore. This is especially a good idea if you are looking to major in a social science or humanities. A lot of times if you're going to major in a natural science, the chemistry, calculus, the kinds of classes you're taking for pre-med are already helping to meet those major requirements. But if you're looking at some areas outside of that, exploring major topics can be really wonderful. Want to remind you, we busted the myth last time that you do not have to major in a natural science, especially one like biology, to be pre-med. You can major in anything. So go take that religion or English or theater studies or whatever that course is for you, and get started on getting a taste of that field at Duke. We really want to highlight, consider taking medium and small sized courses. Courses like chemistry are going to be large in nearly all cases. So balancing that out with smaller, medium courses. Also, if you're in some majors like computer science or psychology, that major course is also going to be a big intro course. So these medium, small courses are excellent for balancing the type of work you'll do in the class, as well as just the format of the class and the expectations of class, and they can be really helpful for giving you the time and energy you need to focus on those pre-health classes. And then last, do not discount the value of a course in a topic you've never had a chance to take in high school. I bet most of you haven't taken cultural anthropology classes or African American studies, Asian Middle Eastern studies, those kinds of classes. So get out there and really explore. The more time you spend studying what the opportunities and options are at Duke, the happier you'll wind up being with your classes, because you'll find some really great gems of classes by doing that. So don't be afraid to do that. If you need something to help focus, do an advanced search where you kind of have your classes lined up and look at the spaces that you have open and empty. You can also do things like search by Trinity codes. Arts, literature, and performance, civilizations are ones that sometimes our science-focused pre-health students will benefit from taking classes in, because it will meet Trinity requirements that they kind of have to go out of their way to obtain. On the Pratt side, think about taking Writing 101 that's not related to your engineering degree. There's a huge variety of writing options, and so that can be a place for you to do the equivalent of taking advantage of your choices. You don't get as many electives as students in Trinity, but take every single one of those social science and humanities courses as an opportunity to take something really exciting and complementary to your study of engineering. Don't just find a class that will meet the requirement and check a box. Find something that is interesting to you personally. Courses in ethics can be really relevant to medicine. We also recommend our Pratt students who might not have AP English or want to attend schools that won't accept that, but want English or writing intensive courses. This is a great place to start. Look for courses in the English department or ones that are writing coded. We do have resources on our website under the handouts and resources. If you want to look at what are the requirements by medical field, we have under handouts and resources a document about course requirements by career type. And then for those of you who are interested in medical schools, there's a medical school admissions requirements report that you can use to figure out what your state schools are going to require, so that you're at least on track for the things that are outside of the lists of courses that we have. All right, now I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Moorhack.
So we want to help you find success in the first semester, in all of your semesters, but setting yourself up for this first semester in a way that you feel like you can fully transition to be a Duke student is really important to us in HPA. So we're going to go through some things on this slide that are things we recommend you not do and what you could do instead. So for our first one, don't have all of your classes be the same size. That can create a lot of, whether they're all large or all small, they can start to feel too one-dimensional. So instead, you might want to think about diversifying your classes. This will help you with lots of different learning styles. So large classes might be taught a little bit differently than seminars, and you'll find strengths and weaknesses in both of those for yourself as a learner. It will also help you develop relationships with faculty. We can't underscore enough in HPA how important that is, not only for your academic success, but down the line, you will be looking for letters of recommendation, whether that's for an awesome summer program that you're thinking about doing down the line, or medical school or health professions school down the line. So building those relationships now can be really helpful. We also don't want to see you sit in all of one topic or one type of course. And so what we mean by that is we highly recommend you not have all STEM courses your first semester, or all humanities, or all social sciences. Instead, you want to think about diversifying those courses. And through the diversification of your courses, it allows for some exploration, but there's also really interesting learning that can happen when you're learning about something STEM related, and maybe the social context about why some things happen in the real world, and you'll start to draw some connections. So it's all about the big picture learning too, but it also helps you flex different parts of your brain throughout the semester. Next, we don't want to see you in more than 2 courses with a lab if you are a Trinity student. As we'll talk about in a few minutes, Pratt students have things pretty laid out for them. But if you're a Trinity student where you have a lot of choice, really think about no more than 2 labs. Instead, make sure at least 2 of your courses do not have labs, just for a little bit more freedom in your time and some choices in other spaces. And lastly, do not add 4 courses with real high volume coursework. We really do want to see you be successful. So instead, we want you to think about really diversifying the workloads for your courses as well. So there might be some high volume course workload courses that don't have a lab, and you might want to think about maybe waiting on that class. You've never been a Duke student before. We know you're all academically successful, but whether you're a transfer student or a first-year student at Duke, being a student here is going to be new to you in the next couple of weeks. And we really want you to find the balance in all aspects of your life, whether that's academics, experiential, or social. So give yourself some diversification in workload, so you have the space for that. Okay, next. All right, the good stuff. This is what we get the most questions about. We're going to look at some sample schedules. I know this seems a little confusing, so we'll kind of go through what the codes mean and how to think about it. You've heard Dean P and then myself use the word diversification a lot, and to look at different variables. So these are some potential schedules for students who are in Trinity. What you're going to see on the left-hand side are for students who need to choose 4 courses, meaning they're not doing the focus program. And what you're going to see on the left-hand side are the courses we most likely see students choosing. And you'll see what requirements they're fulfilling. So most of our pre-health students are going to start with chemistry. And what you're going to see underneath are multiple numbers, right? Because your AP credit or lack thereof and your experience in chemistry prior to coming to Duke will help you decide which chemistry course to start with. Those placement guides are online. They come from the chemistry department, and our office fully stands behind the placement. So whatever the placement guide is what we encourage you to start with. So you'll choose which chemistry starting place is the right one for you. And a chem course is going to fulfill a pre-health prereq, which is why you'll see the little stethoscope. And then you'll see the little Trinity mark next to it, because as a first-year student, you haven't fulfilled any of the TREQs yet. So every course you take this semester is going to be taking one step closer to graduation. And then we've listed some class sizes for you. So the L is large, the S is small, and M would be a medium-sized course. And so as you can see, we want to make sure we're paying attention to those things as well. If you need to take a math course, that's another great starting point for first-year students in Trinity. If you have AP credit, you may choose to do something else, because many medical schools will just look for 1 semester of college-level math. They may or may not need calculus specifically. So you'll want to look into whether calculus is something you personally need to do. half of you are assigned to take Writing 101. I always love to point out to first years, Writing 101 is a pre-health prereq. Most health professions programs, graduate programs are looking for you to take writing courses. So your Writing 101 is a pre-health prereq. So very quickly, 3 courses, and you've already done 3 pre-health prereqs. And if you're not assigned the Writing 101 program for this semester, you'll be taking a seminar instead. And then you do really, in a lot of ways, have one choice left. And that's where you want to go back to Dean Perz's recommendations and really think about what might be exciting for you, and things that you can think about. For those of you in the Focus program, you already have 2 classes identified thanks to Focus. And so a lot of our Focus students will choose a chemistry and a math. One of the reasons that we highlight these 2 as starting points is they're the most sequential. So getting started on chemistry, because you'll have anywhere from 4 to 5 classes of chemistry to take, lets you kind of move forward in that space. And math is often a prereq for courses like physics down the line. All right, and then we're going to move on to Pratt.
Can I add just something about Focus? This is often the time of year where folks in the Focus program start to wonder if they can do Focus and be pre-health. And I just tell folks in Focus, stay the course. Don't leave the program. Those 2 small classes, building relationships with faculty. We got the question, what is an LOR? That's a letter of recommendation, and Focus courses are a great way to build those relationships now and for down the line. Thanks for tolerating my jumping in.
So transitioning to Pratt, like we talked about before, Pratt students are going to have a little more structure, shaping their coursework throughout their entire time at Duke, but especially for their first semester. And so you'll see that for Pratt students, you are going to get started with chem and math right away. And you're also going to want to start with your EGR course, which is the engineering sort of foundational course. And then half of the students in Pratt will be taking Writing 101. The other will do their digital computation course, and then you'll switch semesters. So for most of our pre-health students who are pursuing a degree within Pratt, your choices are really which chemistry course do you place into, and then looking at what your math placement is going to be for what Pratt requires. This one's a little more straightforward. All right, and as Dean Perz said, we really wanted to leave a lot of room for questions, but what we really want to highlight today is that each of your pathways at Duke are going to be really unique. You're coming in with different educational backgrounds and experiences, and you have different goals within both health professions programs and healthcare in general. We really want you to feel a lot of agency and autonomy in choosing the courses that are going to help you grow in the ways that you're most interested in intellectually, as a person and as a future health professional. So we want to encourage you to chart your own path, take the courses that sound interesting. We think that building strong semesters brick by brick, focusing on the direction we're headed, not the destination, is how we see health profession students be the most successful in their time at Duke. And then before we open up for questions, just one more plug here. We'll leave this up as we answer questions. On the left-hand side is how you sign up for listserv, and on the right-hand side is how you can follow us on Instagram, Duke_HPA.
All right, so time for questions, and we do have a handful. So starting off, the 2 top ones that I'm looking at are very similar in nature, about receiving a 5 in an AP course. So if someone received a 5 in Spanish, does that mean they don't have to take a foreign language at all at Duke? And if someone received a 5 in like AP calculus and chemistry, can those test scores work towards the pre-med requirement for chemistry and calculus?
So AP classes won't carry any kind of Trinity code. So for the AP in Spanish, what that does is allows you to place into a higher level class. And because there's 2 AP Spanish tests, one in language, one in literature, I'm going to refer you to the Spanish department. They have a language placement page. In all likelihood, you'll be in an advanced, intermediate, or advanced class, and may be able to take 1 or 2 semesters of language instead of the required 3, and still fulfill the requirement. The language requirement in Trinity is 3 semesters of the same language, or however many it takes to get to the advanced level, which is 300, whichever is less. So not everybody has to get to that advanced level. So you may be able to take a more advanced class with that. With the 5 on chemistry and calculus, we do encourage students to follow the AP placement guide and take the higher level classes rather than repeating coursework you saw in high school. What happens is coursework you saw in high school may seem really familiar when you're sitting in the class. So you start to get a little complacent and check out. But professors will write very challenging tests, in all likelihood harder than the tests you saw in high school. So this winds up being this really perfect storm of you're not engaged enough to do well. You should be able to do really well, but you might wind up with a lower score, which is kind of counterintuitive. So what AP scores can do is put you into a higher level class. We do advise students who are planning on using AP scores to place into classes. This is where you've got to go look at your state medical schools and see, will they accept those AP credits? There are very few schools that will not. And it's worth knowing about that before you use them. But otherwise, we think you'll be happier. You'll probably wind up taking fewer pre-health classes if you place into a higher level chemistry class and don't have to take the complete sequence. You'll be more likely to be engaged, and you're going to open up opportunities for yourself to take other elective classes down the road if you do it. We have a couple of majors that are really popular with our pre-health students, but they're also really large. So neuroscience, as much as you think it would be really obvious it overlaps well with pre-health requirements, it doesn't very well. It's got some extra classes that you'll have to take on top of pre-health. Our global health major is also really popular, but it's a required co-major. So you have to have 2 majors in order to complete a major in global health. If you place into higher level classes using APs, you've got more space in your schedule to fit in these kinds of opportunities.
And so staying on the one of the similar formats of APs, do med schools look at Chem 101 versus Chem 110 differently?
Great question. Most medical schools are not going to look at those differently. What we want to see for our pre-health students is you being successful in your first chemistry course. And so one of the things that medical schools do look at are, do you have good self-assessment skills? Are you able to take advice and figure out what's best for you and choose that path? And so we think making sure you're in the correct placement is the best thing for showing medical schools you're developing those skills. From their perspective, they don't care if it's 101 or 110, as long as you're learning the material in a way that you're going to be able to transition with you to medical school.
And so I know one of the last things that we were talking about, or that y'all touched on, was the focus program. So there's a couple questions on that. Will a student miss out on many opportunities if they're not a part of the focus program?
Yeah, I don't want to create FOMO for folks who aren't in focus. You'll have to work a little bit harder to find that 3rd or 4th course. But you can do it. And I think the way to do it is to follow that advice of, pay attention to the class size. In Writing 101 and seminar courses, you have an opportunity to get to know your professors really well. Some students build great relationships with faculty in courses of 200 students. So even that's not impossible. We've got a nice program called the Flunch program, where you get funds to invite professors out to lunch. And it's a great way to kind of break down some of those barriers that the class size and format may create. So it's not impossible. So you shouldn't be too worried if you're not in focus. It's in all likelihood, it's too late to join. So you'll just find other ways to create those opportunities.
And then a few more with focus. And I think these are opinion questions also, just getting some advice. What if their focus classes are the same time as some higher level courses that they're wishing to take?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that those are really good conversations to have with a college advisor. I also have a second hat as a college advisor, and I find that the reason I would encourage you to connect with your college advisor around that is I like to sit back and look at the big picture that's not just health professions when I'm working with college advisees. And sometimes, what do I do if this higher level course is conflicting with a focus class or another class I'm hoping to take? That's a big picture question that you might want to sit with somebody and kind of talk through, because I don't think there's a right answer. There's a right answer for each of you. Some students will find a different class to take, and others will think about finding a completely different subject then to take and kind of wait on that subject that they're interested in.
So one student's wondering if there is a freshman or first year organic chemistry course. The chemistry placement website says that there is one, but it doesn't seem that there's one on Duke Hub. I don't know if y'all can provide insight on that.
Yeah, I have wondered about this. We used to offer a first year only class. It was often the second section. And it would kind of be hidden in the course attributes. This is for first years only. I'm not positive. We got a new director of undergraduate studies in chemistry recently. It may be that he hasn't realized that that's on the website and dispensed with this first year only section, or but either way, you should reach out to the director of undergraduate studies in chemistry. That website or that email link will be on the website under the placement for chemistry, and just confirm with him because things may have changed, or I just may not be looking in the right places either to confirm that.
And I feel like these questions that are very similar might tie into what Brittany, you were highlighting earlier. So some questions about how to know which courses have an increased amount of coursework or course load. And then also some students wondering, should they limit themselves to 4 courses per semester?
Great questions. So the first is, I cannot underscore how peers and your peers can be helpful. So our student success leaders, other upperclassmen that you're connecting with can be good resources. Talking to your college advisor is a great resource as well, for thinking about workload and just making sure you have some balance. Generally speaking, most of our first years are going to take between 4 and 4.5 credits. You cannot take 5 credits in your first semester. Most students are going to take 4 courses throughout their time at Duke. They might have a semester or 2 where they're taking 5, but I generally recommend to students wait at least a year or so to make sure you have a good sense of when your busy seasons are. If you're in student organizations or you get involved in other ways on campus, you might want to be selective about when you have a little bit more coursework to do, and if you need to do an overload. But I think there are a lot of students who graduate on time in 4 years without ever taking an overload, and then a handful that will take courses, extra courses throughout their time.
Let's see, I'm trying to make sure we find some themes in here. Is it common to take biology as a first year?
In your first semester, it's not. Sometimes we don't have enough seats in the biology department for first years. The Bio 201 molecular biology course requires Chemistry 101 as a prerequisite. I do not recommend taking Bio 201 without that chemistry. I like to see students have organic under their belt before that, just because of the ways you have to think spatially, and the other organic shorthand that molecular biologists will use. So if you want to be a biology major, you're actually meeting biology major requirements by taking chemistry and calculus in your first semester. Now, if you don't need calculus and you've got that AP Chem 101 under your belt, then maybe enrolling in a biology class makes sense for you, but otherwise I recommend against it. We encourage pre-health students, because these classes are really demanding and can be competitive. We also try not to highlight how important grades are because y'all are focused on it, but it's best to take the classes that your similarly experienced peers are taking. So that means coming in and taking chemistry and calculus when your other pre-health students are doing it. Then you'll layer in biology, then physics. A lot of students will come out of high school having seen or taken physics and want to kind of dive in, but our physics classes are really tough and competitive, and they're taken by more experienced students. So waiting a little bit later. Now, of course, if you want to major in physics, it's a different story about when you take that physics. But that's kind of how I encourage students to think about it. You're going to take a large number of chemistry classes, multiple semesters. If you start in Orgo, it's 3-4 classes. If you start in 101, it's 4 to 5 classes. And if you start in 99, it's 6 classes. So you've got a long haul with a chemistry sequence. Chemistry is a prerequisite for biology. So that's another reason to get going on your chemistry earlier than the biology.
I know I saw the question. Oh, here it is. Can a student take calculus at a community college over the summer? Or then also, do you recommend students, if they have the opportunity to take some courses over the summer and the winter, do you think that is also advisable too?
Good questions. So medical schools, if we're talking about medical schools, will not accept community college credit once you start at your undergrad institution, the great majority of them. So our advice is that if you're going to do summer coursework, to make sure it's at a 4-year institution. Other health professions have varying sort of rules around that. So if you are pursuing something other than medical school, you might have some more flexibility, but generally speaking, making sure you take it at a 4-year school will ensure that it's accepted by any health professions program you're interested in. It is not uncommon for our pre-health students to take a course or two over the summer. I usually suggest students make sure that they're taking it for reasons that give them different educational choices at Duke. So I'm taking a course or two over the summer because it means I'll be able to go abroad, or taking a course at home means that when I come back, I can take a course that's only offered at Duke. Those are the types of educational choices that when we talk to health professions programs down the line, they see that you're making choices that enhance and challenge you instead of taking classes that might feel a little bit, you're taking it because you want to take it outside of a full course load.
One student was wondering if they have the Chem 21 credit, but they don't feel confident in their chemistry skills, how can they enroll in Chem 101 over Chem 110? They're planning to take 210 anyway, as some medical schools do not accept AP credits.
Okay, so I forget, I think Chem 21 is for a 5 on the AP exam. I do not believe the chemistry department will allow you to take Chem 101 because that's 2 levels lower. You could take 110 because it's 1 level down, but I would refer all those questions to the chemistry department. There is the possibility that if the system allows you to enroll, the chemistry department will drop you from the class if it's not an allowable, if you're enrolling below the level of placement. So please contact Dr. Cox, the DUS in chemistry, and ask that question before your window, because it'd be much easier to enroll in Chem 201 or 110 when you register and haven't built a class schedule around Chem 101, only to find out that you're going to get knocked out of there. So just don't go more than 1 level away from your placement in chemistry, and talk to them if you're thinking about doing that.
Is it recommended that Trinity students start taking their foreign language requirement this fall semester? Or if they wait to take it in the spring, does that mess up their course path or anything like that?
I think that is a complicated question that I would say yes or no. Our favorite phrase in pre-health advising is "it depends," and I think that fits here. I say that because some students will come in having just taken their language and they're going to be rolling and continuing with that language. And they find starting right away when they get to Duke is helpful to keep with continuity. Whereas other students I've talked with decide they're going to try a new language, or they're going to be starting at a 100 level, and there might be something really interested that they would like to take, and they decide to delay their language until the spring for that reason. I think that those are all valid choices depending on your goals and your background, what you're coming in with, what you're choosing to take. Again, I think it's just a choice. If you know that you're going to need to take 3 courses, what I probably recommend against is waiting until junior or senior year to try to get those in. You don't want to be rushing on the back end to get through your coursework. But I think if you wait until the spring because there's something really exciting for you this fall, I would absolutely endorse that.
I would just add the only risk of that is if you're taking a language that only offers 101 in the fall and 102 in the spring. So we've got a great languages.duke.edu website that consult with that. You'll be able to tell what those languages are languages like Romance languages tend to offer everything every semester and sometimes even in summer, but it also depends on the language.
Are there placement tests for any subject? And then also know we've been talking about AP courses a lot. Do the students send their AP test scores to a particular place, or how does that process also work for them too?
Yeah, okay, I'm going to try to hang on to both those questions. I'm going to start with where to send your scores. Send your scores to the registrar's office at Duke. We have what's a CEEB number. It's some college board number. They'll have it on the registrar's website and instructions. They can't come from you. They've got to come straight from College Board. You have to remind me what the other part of the question is. I knew I was going to forget both.
And the second one, are there placement tests for any subject?
Yeah, that tends to be a rarer phenomenon that's very much department by department. Math has got some self-placement tests you can do that are really just kind of, do you remember enough from pre-calculus or a previous course to do well in the class? You should be honest about that. You do not want to overplace yourself by looking up answers and cheating your way through those placement tests because you may regret it if you don't have the math under your belt the way you need to. Some language departments will, but that's where you've just got to get on everybody's website, read the pages. We don't have a lot of opportunities for you to place out if you're not coming in with AP credit. The way I would describe any placement tests that we offer, they're really about refining the placement and helping you make decisions. So if you hear from math or chemistry that diagnostic quiz they've given in an early day class really recommends that you drop down or move up, you should follow that. It's based in data, it's based in outcomes and how well students have done. And, we're not really trying to make anybody take extra classes or make you take harder classes. We're really trying to help you find the best place for you. And that's a highly individual process.
So we have a few research opportunity questions. So the first one seems to be advice. Is it too early or too soon to try and get involved in research in their first semester or their first year? And then are there any courses that are critical for research opportunities?
Oh, good questions. And I'm going to, on the front end, invite Dean P to chime in if I miss anything. I don't think it's necessarily too early to get started in research, but I would say it is more, it's more the track that students will get involved in research in their second semester or beyond. One thing in our team that we really highly encourage folks to do is that transitioning into Duke. And there's a lot of different moving pieces, and a lot of labs are going to ask for time commitments on the front end. And you may not be 100% sure about your time and how it balances and what it looks like at Duke until you have a full semester underneath. I can think of a tiny handful of students who might have been doing research prior to getting to Duke that have a connection with the lab from that work that maybe maybe they get started in their first semester, but it's really rare. And I think that we have students who get really great experiences in their sophomore, junior, and senior years. There's plenty of time for research. We see a lot of students who, pre-health students who will consider doing a graduation with distinction thesis because it allows them to do their own process of research. So as I'm thinking about classes that are critical for research, there are some R-coded classes in Trinity requirements, which are research-based. But I think the coursework that might be required to be successful in a lab is going to be really lab dependent. So if you're interested in doing research in global health, having some global health courses completed are going to be much more helpful to you in that lab space. And so a little bit of that might be driven by the type of research that you're interested in pursuing. DMP, anything I'm missing or that you would add?
I think a couple of, I agree completely that it's not the norm to start research or first semester. Muser tends to open during dropout in the fall. It will open again in course registration for spring. Bass Connections teams kind of vary in how they do intake. Both of those I think are fairly friendly and user friendly to students. We also have student organizations, the Research Scholars Program and Duke Undergraduate Research Support DERS. These are peer-to-peer opportunities. And there'll also be programs. Last fall, we had this really great Saturday program that just had multiple tracks, and it was all about advice for getting started in research. So there'll be a lot of discussion for that, even if you're not starting in the fall.
Well, like maybe this question has been asked or answered in some shape or form. I've seen a few more of these. Do you have to start with chem and math first semester, or can you take chem first semester and then bio and math second semester? Would that mess up the chemistry sequence?
Yeah, I think one of the things we didn't highlight is it's possible to not take any pre-health classes your first semester. So if you take one instead of two, it's going to be okay. 80% of our students are going to wind up taking a gap year, which means they can use all 4 years to complete pre-health requirements and take the MCAT before they apply. So I think one of the great things I've seen as we've gone from mostly juniors applying to mostly seniors and alums applying is that all pathways are really normalized. And so if focus or other considerations, you're excited about starting a major class or whatever the reasons are for only taking one, you know, that's a perfectly reasonable way to start. It's not going to be the end of the world. We offer almost every pre-health class in summer, so anybody who starts that way and doesn't want to take a gap year has opportunities if they want to give up their summers for taking courses to do that. So I think that's a perfectly reasonable pathway.
And Alyssa, you brought up gap year in your last response. If a student's wondering if they take a gap year after senior year, could it be a Duke travel abroad program?
So to the best of my knowledge, once you graduate from Duke, you're not eligible for a Duke travel abroad program. And just for shared foundation, a gap year would be that you would apply to medical school at the completion of your senior year. So the timeline would be you would do all 4 years of your time at Duke, you would graduate at mid-May, and then 2 to 3 weeks later, you would submit your application to medical school. So once you've graduated from Duke, that wouldn't be a program that you could do.
And does the required writing 101 course count towards the 3 to 4 semester hours of writing courses that some med schools require?
Yeah, there are some that want as many as 6 semester hours. and writing 101 in almost all cases will count as either writing intensive or an English. Some schools still frame it as an English class, but writing 101 covers both of those. So what some students need for schools that want a second one is another class in English or writing intensive classes.
This might be a good one. Are there personal one-on-one meetings for pre-health advising once we get onto campus? Or once the students get onto campus? I'm already on campus.
Great question. So we are excited to welcome you over the next couple of weeks and months, and we will have lots of group opportunities to interact with us. We have virtual drop-ins or drop-ins in general with pre-health for first years to access us. And one of the things we like to highlight for our drop-ins is that we do utilize a waiting room situation. So you are asking us questions in private, and there aren't other students listening in if you're doing the virtual format on Zoom. So you do get some opportunities to talk with one of us that way.
And as we're looking at time and getting close to wrapping up, I guess asking, listen, Brittany, sharing some like final thoughts, takeaways. What do you want those that have attended today to take away from this webinar?
Balance. Give yourself a lot of grace the first couple of weeks. So, I think when we say balance, we mean it in all ways. Find academic balance, make sure that you're taking good care of yourself in all the other ways: sleep, eating, exercising, spending time with friends, getting involved in co-curricular or extracurricular activities that feed your soul and make you happy. This is a big transition, and we're really excited to have you joining our Duke community, but we want to make sure you take care of yourself first and foremost. And balance is the way we see most first years being really successful in those first couple of weeks and months.
And I'm sure we said it last time, but it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's 12 to 16 classes. You're going into professions that involve life and death. So life experience, maturity, a strong sense of who you are and self-awareness about what you need to do to avoid burnout. Those are all essential things to develop along the way. You guys have the opportunity to get a really fine world-class education. If you only come here to get what's on the other side, you have missed out on so much. You will be a better applicant, a better provider, a better human being if you get everything you can out of the Duke experience. So stop, smell the roses, figure out who you are, what you love, do those things alongside, in harmony with becoming a professional.
Actually, this question has came in a few times or in different ways. So a student saying that they saw on a sample 4-year plan that it's recommended to take Biochem 301 during their sophomore year, but it looks like it's signified as a junior year class. So when could a student take a Biochem 301 course?
Can't remember where we are, but I'm going to jump in.
Sure.
Biochemistry has a 2 semesters of organic chemistry prerequisite. So, and the content overlaps quite a bit with molecular biology. So we recommend you take biochemistry after you've had a chance to take those 3 classes. So if you're starting in organic chemistry your first semester, you may get there by your sophomore year. If you're starting in a different chemistry class, it's more likely to be your junior year. Whichever way you do it, one is going to be the right way for you based on your chemistry and biology background. So follow that pathway.
Well, again, thank you, Alyssa and Brittany, for sharing your time and sharing all of this wonderful information with our students. And again, to echo what Brittany said, balance. You all are stepping into this new season and this new time of your life. And we know that you want to get all your academic answers questioned and you want to make sure that you're prepared and you're on the right track. But we have folks like Liz and Brittany who are here and prepared for you. So like I said, join the listserv. If you haven't scanned the QR code that is still on the screen, scan that and make sure you're also following them on Instagram to make sure. And if you feel like you still have some more questions, this is not the end all be all. Don't hesitate to reach out to the team and they'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And also, like Brittany and Alyssa shared, that they will also have some one-on-ones or some drop-in opportunities when they get here in the fall. But again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And this webinar is being recorded. So we're going to make sure it gets transcribed and it's accessible to all. But within the next 48 to 72 hours, it will be posted on our YouTube page, but then also will be shared in the next weekly digest, or when it is available, it'll be shared in that digest. But again, thanks for joining us. And I hope everyone has an amazing afternoon.
Thanks for having us. Good luck next week when you register.